stories. They have a teaching or a moral. They contain symbols and archetypes. They have a unifying theme. And they also bring a secret. Let's see, as the first three of these come together in us from this reminder of a Sufi allegory, whether it can elicit from us this open secret. Yusef was a very pious man. He followed all the tenets of the religion of the day. He answered the calls to prayer, and he prayed. Did he pray? Because Yusef was a poor man. He'd never known in his life a full stomach. So it growled and it rumbled, and it brought him into states of despair and desolation. And when the despair and desolation came to such a degree that it was almost unbearable for him, somehow, from somewhere deep inside of himself, there would come a voice, and it invariably said, "Come, come." And with that, Yusuf's heart would be lifted. His spirits would be brought again to that state where he could function. But then his grumbling stomach would inevitably bring him back. But then one morning, when he awoke in that somnambulant state between uncomfortable, restless sleep and waking, a voice came to him, the same voice that used that word, come. And it said, "Yusef, go to the stationery store where you will find in a pile of papers a yellow parchment. Take it." And Yusef said, "You mean steal it?" And the voice said, "It's yours. Take it. Read it well and follow its instructions carefully." Well, at first Yusef was very elated. At last he had confirmation that there was a reality of God. That voice that had said to him, "Come," could speak to him. But soon the grumbling of his stomach, the pain of hunger, again brought him to this abject state. So raising himself up, he hurried to the stationery store, and there he found the pile of papers and saw in their midst the yellow parchment that had been spoken of. So while the stationer's back was turned, he extricated the parchment, put it under his robe, and hurried away. When he got back to his home, he opened the parchment, and it said, "Go to the martyr's shrine outside the city gates. Take a bow and arrow, and release an arrow. Dig where the arrow falls, and you will find a treasure." So Yusef, reading these instructions, was rather perplexed. He hadn't had a bow and arrow in his hands since he was a small child. He didn't know how to shoot an arrow. But following the instructions, he went and borrowed a sturdy bow from a friend with arrows. And as the sun was rising, he went outside the city gates, and, as was instructed, he turned in the direction of the rising sun and shot an arrow. He dug where the arrow fell and found nothing. He was dejected. It was his art. He didn't know how to fire a bow and arrow properly. He'd have to practice. So he began to do so. He practiced the art of marksmanship until his arms became strong and his body became firm, and he could shoot the arrow far. And again he went outside the city gates and shot his arrow and dug where the arrow fell. But every time he found nothing. But you know the way of things. And it was soon learned by Yusef that the king had come to know of his quest. And so Yusef was put in a very difficult situation. What should he do? Should he take his scroll and run off into the distance? Or should he relinquish his parchment to the king? He'd had no success in digging and digging. He'd become stronger. He'd become a marksman. But he had found no treasure. This was a great crossroads for Yusef. What should he do? But then the wisdom of those years of discipline and prayer rose up in him, and he realized that he must relinquish the parchment to the king. And so he took the scroll and he handed it to the king. He said, "I have had no success in finding this treasure, but you have great marksmen. Perhaps you will have more luck than me." So very sad, Yusef left. And the king, of course, called the greatest marksmen in the land, and they dug and they dug and they dug, and they found no treasure. So in disgust, the king sent a messenger back to Yusef, bringing the parchment back to him, saying, "We have had no luck with the greatest marksmen in the land. If you find the treasure, it is yours. Here's your parchment back." But Yusef was so depressed. He'd had no luck so far. He'd gained a great amount of strength, fortitude, and sense of purpose, but there was no treasure. So in this state of desolation, Yusef staggered out into the desert that lay beyond the city gates and the martyr's tomb. And there, as he fell on his knees, the voice deep within him said, "Come, come." And rising up in Yusef was this great realization. He had taken and attempted to find the power on his own, gaining his strength, forgetting God, on his knees, in a greatly humble and abject state, Yusef begged for forgiveness. Please, give me forgiveness for forgetting to surrender all to you. And with that, there was a resolve in his being. He went back to his position at the martyr's tomb, and turning to face the rising sun, he took up his bow and arrow, and at that moment the voice came back to him, and it said, "Remember, you were instructed to release the arrow, not to shoot the arrow." Remembering these words, Yusef stood with his bow and arrow, and without effort, without trying, without doing, he released the arrow from its bow. The arrow fell at his feet, and there he dug, and as he did, a treasure trove was revealed to him. Teaching the moral, the symbols and the archetypes, the unifying theme come together in us to bring an understanding of stories. But what is the secret that this and all other stories contain? What is the secret in this story for you? What is this secret?
The doing without doing, and become the instrument, the actor.
Yes. Yes.
They to be totally present. In
Yeah.
the moment.
Yes.
Opposed to a quest that is a projection.
Yes. Yes. We know where it is. Our spiritual journey has brought us to this place of knowing where it is, isn't it? Presence, attention, awareness, alertness. But the secret,
Releasing the error, releasing the personal,
yes.
releasing purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Maybe the secret is to know inside, to have this, just to know we are.
Right,
Maybe
of course.
the secret.
Yes.
And it's holding, it's not, it has its own, feeling.
So if someone asks us, who are you? Who are you? You no longer can say, I'm Joe Blow the teacher, I'm Joe Blow the physician, or Joe Blow the carpenter. Is it? It's not it. And you're not even going to say, I am God or I am that. Are you?
Or when you keep on doing the digging, the understanding just becomes greater and greater.
Yes.
And you keep on digging, everything's changed, but nothing's changed because it was always there, but you've been evolving, as you dig, you evolve more as who you are. And you were
Yes.
always that, but continue to evolve more so with who you are through the knowing, through the understanding.
Absolutely. But what's so important about us coming together and labouring this fact, you have to be able to express it. You have to know, not only know this secret, you have to be able to give expression to it. Why is this body sitting here day after day, pressuring you to be able to do this? Why is it so important?
Making God real.
You bet. Not the God of the mind or the God that everybody talks about out there. What is it? But until we can answer this question, what is this secret? Have we really got it? Just to know it, is it enough? Just to know it is not enough, is it?
No.
It is not. Yes. That means that with every encounter in life, with everyone we meet, that secret is being told, expressed, in whatever we do and whatever we say. So what is this secret? The question will continue to be asked until this body hasn't got any breath in it.